Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this fourth EPF Breakfast Briefing. We are delighted to welcome you, and today it's a very special breakfast briefing for us because it's the last one we are streaming live from our office here because we're moving next week. Today we're going to talk about the European Solidarity Corps, which is an initiative that was announced by the President of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, in September last year. And our objective for today is really to understand more about the European Solidarity Corps, its political relevance, its mechanism, its objectives, and also to understand how patient organizations and young patients can benefit from this flagship initiative. And to discuss this, we are really delighted to welcome Manuel Gil from the European Youth Forum. Welcome, Manuel.
Good morning. Good morning, and thank you very much for the invitation.
How are you doing?
Very well. It's first time in this sort of things, but I think it's going to be well, and also it's a relevant topic from the European Youth Forum side as well.
Before we start with more precise questions on the European Solidarity Corps, I just wanted to give you the opportunity to introduce the European Youth Forum.
The European Youth Forum is a platform of 104 youth organizations aiming to represent young people in Europe. So we are across 40 countries. We do not stick to European Union only countries, and we have different organizations, from faith-based organizations, the Scouts, political movements, non-formal and informal learning, educational movements, etc. So we have a plural platform, and we aim to defend young people's rights in Europe, but also in other regions of the world.
Okay, thank you. So the first question for you would be, what is the European Solidarity Corps exactly, and to what extent is this a political initiative?
The European Solidarity Corps, as you said, was announced by Juncker in September last year. It came out a bit out of the blue, the initiative, and the idea is to promote, his idea, or at least the idea of the Commission, is to promote solidarity in Europe. What they mean about solidarity is to allow young people, it's an initiative focused on young people, to volunteer, but as well to work or to do a traineeship in different organizations and related to a solidarity field. So it can go from working with refugees to working with patients, in the case, which is relevant for your organization, or working in volunteering structures like youth organizations. It's a very open program, and the idea is to actually promote this kind of volunteering, this kind of giving your time to a cause.
Okay, and you already hinted at it, but there are actually two strands under the European Solidarity Corps, one volunteering strand and an occupational strand. Can you tell us more about this two-tier approach?
Yeah, as I mentioned, the European Solidarity Corps is not only about volunteering. You can do a traineeship and you can do a job placement as well. So when you register on the online platform, you have the possibility to choose one of the two possible placements, and then organizations who have access to the database can suggest to the young person that they select to do a traineeship, to do a job in the organization, or to do a volunteering placement. Now all the placements can go from 2 weeks to a year. And then it's up to the organization to decide which format and how to go with the placement. The only difference is that volunteering placements are very similar to EVS, so they're going to have some financial support as well. Traineeships as well need to be paid. But jobs are according to the national law. So every country's law needs to, job placements will be different. Only a small detail, you can do these placements either at the local level, so in your own country, or across borders.
Okay, thank you very much. While I'm asking you questions, I also remember that members who are watching this now live can also ask your own questions. So if you have questions about the European Solidarity Corps, you can ask them at bb@eu-patient.eu, the email address that you can see at the bottom of your screen. Is this initiative new, actually? How does this differentiate from the European Voluntary Service that you mentioned?
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities with EVS indeed. For example, the volunteering strands, as it is right now, the proposal, it's basically a copy-paste of how EVS worked. But there's some key difference. First, as already mentioned, the occupational part. The fact that you can do a job and a traineeship with this. This wasn't possible before. The other element which is different is the local level. Before, EVS was a cross-border mobility program. Now, with the European Solidarity Corps, it's possible to do an in-country placement, which is also new. And there's also different activities that weren't part of EVS. For example, there's the networking activities, which are the events that the Commission supports financially to connect participants and organizations and exchange practices, and as well know each other a bit better, and to find partners for different projects and to promote the European Solidarity Corps. But as well, there's a new activity which is not new. It's a return from the Youth in Action program, which is the Solidarity Projects, which up to 5 European Solidarity Corps participants can group together and propose projects to be funded directly to the Commission or to the national agency. And then this project will be funded, and then it will be self-run by these young persons. And this is new. This is new related to EVS. This wasn't possible before.
And the EVS will stop to exist, or is it integrated in the European Solidarity Corps, or is it pursued?
The brand EVS will disappear. In the current proposal, most of what was EVS will be integrated under the European Solidarity Corps, with a single exception. It's for the countries which are not part of the European Union, so the program countries and the partner countries of Erasmus+, will still have access to a version of EVS that will be called volunteering placements. But EVS, as we know, will change. Another element that I forgot to mention, which was a core element of EVS, which is not part of the European Solidarity Corps, is the sending organizations. These organizations were important part of EVS to do support for the young person before, during, and after his placement, his or her placement. And these organizations now will change their nature. We don't have much information of how this will work. In the current legal base, it's not very clear. They're not mentioned at all. But from the information we got from the Commission, there'll be some kind of organization called support organizations. But we don't have much detail on how they will be integrated on the European Solidarity Corps, and if they'll have similar tasks to the current sending organizations. And this is from our members. It's a big question as well.
Okay. So we see it's a quite broad program. How does this work concretely? So if I am a young patient and I want to do one of these work placement or volunteering activity, how do I approach this? Is there a website to register? Can I proactively contact the organizations I want to volunteer or work for? How does it work?
Right now, you basically already established the first steps that you need to do, which is register on the database. You have a website, which is European Solidarity Corps. If you Google it, you find it easily. You register in the database. You put your data, your profile, like similar to any other job application. You can select either if you want to do a volunteering or occupational or both. You fill the correct information, and then you wait.
And from the hosting organization side?
From the hosting organization side, then you need to, according to the Commission, you need to have a European Solidarity Corps quality label before accessing the database. It will be, according to the documents, it will be similar to the EVS accreditation system, less bureaucratic according to them. And then after getting this label, you have access to the database where you can search and directly find the right profile for your project. The issue we have with this system is it is very passive. Young persons, except for the solidarity projects where they can take an action together with other people to create their own activity, besides this, they just wait. Currently they don't have access to which kind of organizations have the ESC label, which organizations are seeing their profile, and they can't contact them directly. It's the hosting organizations who contact the participant and not the other way around. And we don't think this is empowering.
And for the organization, it's also having access to a huge pool of young people, and it's sometimes difficult to filter the ones who are really interested in your mission and your cause. So yeah, this is a bit of a limitation for now, I see. Okay, a proposal for a legal base for the European Solidarity Corps was presented by the Commission on the 30th of May. At the same time, the Commission announced that over 30,000 young people had already signed up. Is this already in place concretely? Do we already have young people participating and being employed or being volunteering in some organizations?
Yeah, the European Solidarity Corps, and this is part of the confusion there is around the whole project, the all initiatives, that actually it's already in place. Phase 1 of the Solidarity Corps was launched last December, together with the database, together with the registering platform, and then the Commission took 8 different funding lines, including Erasmus+, Life Program, Europe for Citizens, etc., and asked organizations to apply through these funding lines and propose placements for the young people who were registered in the database. So yes, there's already ESCers in the field. According to some information, they're not many yet.
How many?
We have at least information that there are around 300 from the beginning of the program. That's information that is not confirmed yet, so take these numbers with a grain of salt, but they're not many. And the idea of the and it's still very based on the previous existing programs, this first phase. So what the Commission wants with this legal base that you mentioned is to create a proper program with a proper funding line, and this is why in May they proposed to the Parliament and the Council of the European Union a structure of how this would look like for the second phase, which will last from 2018 to 2020.
We'll talk about the funding in a minute, because it's actually one of the sticky points, I think, both for the organizations and for the institutions. The Commission has proposed more than 340 million euros for this initiative. Where does the funding come from? Is it fresh money, or is it money coming from the different programs?
It's exactly that. It's money coming from different programs. 191 million comes from Erasmus+. Then there's other funding coming from different other sources. For example, the Youth Employment Initiative, the European Fund for Social Innovation, the Rural Development Funds, and as well there's 81 million coming from Global Margins for Commitments, which is money that was allocated to a specific heading, but not allocated to a project. And this is what they call the 25%, this 81 million, is what they call fresh money. So technically there's more money allocated for young people overall. So the Commission indeed says that they're putting more money, and indeed other projects that didn't have a youth perspective now have a youth perspective. So overall, in terms of money accessible to young people, it's more. But indeed, it's not money that comes directly from member states or from other sources of financing. It's reallocation of different existing funds.
And what is the view of the European Youth Forum on this? Are you happy with this funding scheme?
We are concerned about the impact on the Erasmus+. Erasmus+ is a program which has great importance for young people, but as well for youth organizations. And seeing that, and it's a program that is under strain as well. There's many projects who are good, which are not funded, and with taking money out of Erasmus+ in a moment where they promised to increase Erasmus+ funding, it's a bit of an incoherence from the Commission's part. And we are as well concerned about the nature of the program. Since we're taking out volunteering dimension out of Erasmus+, which has a strong non-formal and informal learning dimension, with meaning that young people can learn, get skills and get competences outside of the education field, which is an important mission of the Erasmus+ program as a lifelong learning program. Now that this is taking off, we are concerned in the views of the next negotiations of the program, of the multi-annual financial framework, of how the Erasmus+ program successor will shape up, and how to guarantee that this dimension of non-formal and informal learning and support for youth is not lost in the middle of the discussions, since now we have this competing program called the European Solidarity Corps.
So I guess it's a bit the worry of all the organization with their own program, that they are worried that the money is taken away from the program that could have been allocated to some project on their own issues. But I understand. In the view of the European Youth Forum, what are the benefits for the young people? Because in the end, it is a program targeted at young people. So are you happy about this program, and what are the benefits according to you for the young people?
We welcome the program. We don't think it's a bad idea overall, because one element that was lacking was a focus on volunteering since 2011, which was the European Year of Volunteering. So one positive thing for us and for youth organizations, but young people as well, is a recognition of the role of young people in building solidarity in Europe, in promoting on the role of volunteering in our societies and promoting social cohesion, but as well the core element of the social fabric that volunteering plays. So these two elements, with the goals and the major ideas of the European Solidarity Corps, we actually like them. It's more about how it will be implemented, and then the role of youth organizations and other civil society organizations in its shaping up and also its implementation. And currently we don't have a role in this, and this is a concerning element from us, because since this is a program targeted to young people, that young people should have a place to shape it up. And currently it's only run by the DGAC, so the Education, Audiovisual and Cultural Director General, and the national agencies of Erasmus Plus at national level. So it's a very contained program, and we don't have, besides the stakeholder meetings that we attended, we don't have many alleyways to influence the project. And without young people, this project cannot succeed.
And for the target young people, what do you think are the benefits of the program?
I think one of the elements that you already mentioned is they want to create more opportunities for young people from disadvantaged backgrounds to participate in volunteering, but as well increase their opportunities to enter the labor market, but as well to be active citizens in their communities and in Europe. So this is positive, this intention. As well, the diversity of possible entryways of joining the program. It's not only restricted to volunteering, but as well there's an occupational element, there's as well the networking activities, there's the solidarity projects. So this diversity is also welcome, because EVS was very restrained in the way the program was the view of the program. So it was very volunteering, 7 days a week, like it was a very full-time volunteering. And this is an element that we think it's missing in the European Solidarity Corps. It's a missed opportunity, because volunteering, as your organization also knows, is not only about full-time volunteering, it's about free-time volunteering, it's about part-time volunteering. This volunteers of a couple of hours per week, and currently under this proposal, this is not possible.
So it's offering an experience for young people, and also experience before entering the job market. That's the bigger added value for young people.
Yeah, we say that this is it is an added. I wouldn't say so far it's an added value. It's an opportunity.
Okay.
Because we are worried as well. Many of our members are worried about we have this occupational strands. We're not against the possibility of having jobs and traineeships. We are worried about the aims of the program. If it's only about promoting employability of young people, there's other programs we already do. For example, the youth guarantee. But for a program which is focused on solidarity and promoting European values, this labor market dimension should be a restraint, should be an element. Of course, it's always good to promote employability, but shouldn't be the main aim. And right now, it's not very clear.
And you mentioned that for young patients, it could also be a way to become included in the job market. But at the same time, we don't see any provisions to guarantee this inclusion and this social inclusion. So that's something that from the European Patients Forum perspective, we would like to see more provisions on how this initiative can really become a beacon for inclusivity, and guarantee that young people from disadvantaged background or with chronic diseases or with conditions can be a part of this program. I think it was also a claim shared by the European Disability Forum.
Yeah.
How can we ensure that the young patients and young people with disabilities can participate in the program?
Currently in the program as it is, they only provide support, financial support, which was already what was under EVS. There was like a financial lump sum that organizations could request if they would select a participant with specific needs or from disadvantaged background, so to adjust their working spaces, but as well to adapt. So for this kind of costs, we believe that we need to go further. We need to go further in terms of even in the selection process, to avoid discrimination based on any kind of background, which is not insured right now on the database. Database just you put your profile in, and there's no insurance from the hosting organization side that that they need to at least consider these profiles to be part of selection process. No, right now it's completely up to the organizations. As well, in terms of the support in terms of preparation of placements, and as well preparation of the organization side. It's very different to host a young person like me who can speak different languages, who can travel easily, than a young person with specific needs and which needs as well a good preparation before, a good support during. If anything goes wrong, who they're gonna turn to exactly. Right now there's not a very clear so it's more about this human side of and this more like physical support, and this more that is missing in the current proposal. Right now the financial provisions are not very clear either, but at least they're there.
Okay.
But this more support in long-term support, and even for the integration in the labor market after, or in other organizations work after the placement, it's not insured either.
Okay. Coming to the hosting organizations, what are the benefits for them? So if EPF was deciding to host a trainee or a volunteer from the European Solidarity Corps, what would we get out of it? And what is also the obligations of what are the obligations of the hosting organizations?
Currently, in terms of the obligations, first you need to, before having a placement, as I mentioned, you need the European Solidarity Corps quality label. So you need to go through the accreditation system. And then at the accreditation system, it will be periodically reviewed. So you need to comply with the European Solidarity Corps Charter, which has that has basic principles of what the organization should strive for, what are the main objectives of the placement as well. But it's not very detailed. You can actually find it online. It's European Solidarity Corps Charter, and it's you're going to see it's like around 20 points. And then after all these parts, you will, depending on the kind of placement that you have, if it's a volunteering placement, if it's a occupational or a traineeship, you get different kinds of support. One common support that you get is, for example, administrative financial help for administrative follow-up. So anything that is related to staff, to questions of follow-up, mentoring, this will be covered. It's not very detailed yet, but at least they mentioned this kind of administrative costs that always happens when you host a volunteer, but as well when you host a trainee or a staffer, exactly, HR support. And in the case of young people, if you host a young person with specific needs, you get an extra financial support. It's not very clear how much, but you get as well extra funds to do this. In the terms of the volunteering placement, the volunteer, not the organization, also will get a financial support, a per diem, a housing, accommodation support, transports. They will pay as well for the travels, for the interview and come back. And then for the jobs and traineeships, the traineeships should be remunerated by the organization, and the jobs as well. It's a normal job contract. So in the case of the traineeships and the jobs, it's like a normal traineeship. The only advantage is ease of access to a database of young people who are interested in working in the field, and as well besides the HR support.
Okay, thank you. In the view of the Youth Forum, what are the shortcomings of this initiative as it stands now? And you've mentioned a few shortcomings already, a few limitations. But what are your major claims if you were to propose things to improve the program?
Well, one major claim I already mentioned is this is a young youth focused program, so we need youth organizations in the co-design and the co-monitoring of the program. This is, for us, it's a clear element. Right now, as I mentioned, it's a commission from the European side, but as well then, with the national agencies of Erasmus Plus who are implementing the program. And there's no provision for consultation and being a part of the implementation from youth organizations. So we, as key stakeholders, we need to be present in the negotiating table and have an influence in the process. The other element that is very important for us is the clearer dimension of what is volunteering from us. A definition of volunteering, as I mentioned as well, is right now it's very strict, the definition. It's defined as a 7-day-a-week, 45 hours per day placement.
Per day?
No, 45 hours per week, sorry, placement. And we don't, but us youth organizations, other civil society organizations have other ways of doing volunteering, and this should be a possibility within the European Solidarity Corps. The third element from us, which is important, is the difference, a clear difference between volunteering and occupational placement. What I mean by this, right now in the legal base, everything is muddled together. All the standards are common for organizations who will propose occupational placements and for organizations who will propose volunteering placements. And this mesh of the two dimensions carries the risk of first mistaking volunteering for a work placement, and then actual replacement of quality jobs by volunteers. And this is, for us, is a red line. We want this to be an opportunity for young people, yes, but we don't want this to further have damage in already a labor market that is hitting hard young people and not giving them enough opportunities to join the labor market with equal rights to everybody else.
I think this is a concern we share at the European Patients Forum, actually, and there is also for us a concern that most patient organizations already rely on volunteers, and they are not necessarily young volunteers. So there is a risk that the European Solidarity Corps, we will see a double volunteer status, so paid volunteers that are enrolled with the European Solidarity Corps and the volunteers that were already involved within patient organizations before. So for us there is also a question of why is the European Solidarity Corps limited to young people? And I know that coming from the Youth Forum, you probably have a different perspective on that, but that for us is a concern. Then we also have concerns with regard to the accessibility and the provisions that are for people with special needs, as you mentioned. And for us, a major claim would be also if we are to launch something new, we need fresh money as well for this program. Any other claims from the Youth Forum on this? Yeah,
just like finish with another one, which is the geographical scope of the program. As I mentioned in the beginning, the European Youth Forum it's beyond the European Union. It goes like to the 40 different European countries, and the fact that there's a difference, geographical difference between young people who are in the EU who will benefit fully from the European Solidarity Corps and young people who are in countries who are in the access program to the European Union or are parts of the Eastern Partnership of the Western Balkans, which are now covered through EVS, now have a different status. It creates an arbitrary difference of opportunity, and this would be an element that our members are concerned, and we should think with at least for 2018 to have a way to carry over the EVS system to the European Solidarity Corps, so that to make sure that all young people across Europe can benefit from the program.
So equity should be the bottom line between young people from all geographical and status as well.
Exactly.
Okay. Great. Looking at the questions from our members, we have one question, and it is easy European Solidarity Corps reserved to NGOs? Can only NGOs host volunteers or placement, or is it also possible for companies to host ESC volunteers and trainees?
No, that's a very good question. Indeed, they can. There's the European Solidarity Corps is open to non-profit and profit organizations. So anyone who receives the European Solidarity Corps label can access to the database, and there's no restrictions to which kind of placements they will be allowed to propose to young people. So this is an element that indeed is concerning, because even if we know from the NGO side and civil society organizations that it's interesting to have this choice possibility, because we already have we know how to do volunteering placements, how to manage volunteers, we as well hire people. It's more difficult to understand why a big company like, for example, Google, or for other big companies like this, will be allowed to do volunteering placements as well. And this is what I mentioned by the blurring of the two realities.
Mm-hmm. So I see that there are a lot of good intentions, but maybe the contours of the initiative are still a bit blurry, and there are a lot of things to be specified and detailed a little bit. What are the opportunities for us as the European Patients Forum, our members, and for you and for civil society in general to contribute to the improvement of the program?
Right now, in terms of the input that we can give as civil society organizations is mostly to the European Parliament. Now the legal proposal is going through the usual legal process of the European Union. So the Commission submitted a proposal to the Parliament and to the Council of European Union for review and adoption. Now the European Parliament, it's through the Cult Committee, which is the culture, and then the MEP, which is the rapporteur of the dossier, Helga Truppel, is very open to suggestions, recommendations from civil society, and is regularly organizing stakeholder meetings. There'll be a public hearing on the 10th of October, which is accessible to civil society organizations, and indeed the Parliament is now our best way to influence and actually make sure that this European Solidarity Corps is accessible and to everyone who is interested in joining. From as well, there's discussions going on in the member states. So your members who work at national level as well can contact directly their ministries and other ways of joining the governments and share their concerns with this. So it's more in these two political fields right now, and there'll be as well, according to the Commission, a bigger consultation coming up on the program guidelines of the European Solidarity Corps, which hopefully will clarify some of these elements of how it will look like in the ground.
Excuse my question, but shouldn't have these steps taken place before the program was actually launched? To have clarity before.
Yes, and indeed that's what I mentioned in the beginning of our conversation. When it came out of a bit of the blue, it's exactly what I meant. We didn't have previous consultations. Well, not only youth organizations, but everybody was concerned about the program, on how this would look like if we wanted this, if even to influence. There was indeed, after the 7th of December, different stakeholder consultations, but yeah, it was very fast, very quick. The commission saying this is a good thing, this fastness, because it means that they're responsive to the needs of the European citizens, which I won't disagree. But indeed, the speed has been this has been a moving train, and sometimes it's hard to follow up even as an organization.
My last question to you is, okay, this program is not perfect yet, and we will work towards improving it. And I think civil society organizations are also keen on supporting this program and on improving it. But if the Commission hadn't proposed that, what would be the ideal steps you would see for young patients and for young people? What would you have proposed instead? What are the priorities for young people?
I think the priorities, one of the priorities, more investment in youth. That indeed, that's, as I mentioned, more investment in programs that are working like Erasmus Plus is a priority. Another priority for us is actually a European wide approach to volunteering. Because one element that European Solidarity Corps doesn't tackle is the barriers to volunteering cross-border, but as well within your own country. There's different legal bases. A statute of being a volunteer is not clear. It's not clear, or it doesn't exist in some countries, so it prevents people to actually engage in these movements. Other element as well is quality standards for employment in, across Europe. The youth guarantee is a good first step indeed, but has a lot of problems that the current proposal doesn't address. It just assumes that everything is going well, which we have reports that saying that not. So there's a lot of priorities from youth that European Solidarity Corps, yes, addresses a bit, but it dips its toe without addressing the core issues at the ground. So, and last thing, just to finish, we would like as well a cross-cutting policy for youth at European level. This one very positive aspect of European Solidarity Corps, due to the fact it puts its fingers in a lot of pies, it brings a lot of stakeholders that usually didn't think about the youth dimension of their programs together in the same room and trying to have some kind of coordination and common approach to young people's issues and creating opportunities to all young people. So we would like to take this opportunity that was created by the European Solidarity Corps and push forward for an actual cross-cutting youth program, and that actually addresses young people not as a silo within the GEAC, but as a common concern throughout the European Union institutions and throughout the Commission.
Thank you. Thank you very much for helping us shed some light on the European Solidarity Corps this morning. I think there is so many aspects of it that we might actually have to organize a few follow-up to bring complete clarity for our members on this initiative. So we're coming to an end of this session on the European Solidarity Corps. Thank you for following this, and yeah, we will see you after the summer for another breakfast briefing from our new offices located Chaussée des Terbeek 180. So you're welcome to come and visit us from September on. And in the meantime, thank you for watching and see you next time.